My parents are furious because I bought a house for myself and not for my sister, who supports my cheating wife. I am 34, and I never imagined I would end up telling my story on a forum. But life has taken me down unexpected paths. Just 2 years ago, I had what I considered a decent existence. A stable job as a mechanic at a local garage, a rented house in a decent neighborhood, and, above all, my wife, whom I will call Jessica. We met in college, and although our relationship was not perfect like all relationships, we had routines, inside jokes, and future plans we thought were solid. However, my world crumbled the day I came home early to surprise her on our anniversary. Opening the bedroom door, I was met with a devastating scene. Jessica was in the middle of an intimate encounter with our neighbor, right there on our bed. The expression on her face was not one of shame, but of annoyance, as if my appearance was merely an interruption to her routine. That moment made it clear that our 6-year marriage had already lost its strength long before that day. The following days unfolded in a blur of heated confrontations, half-hearted apologies, and nights sleeping on my friend Mike's couch, trying to maintain my sanity. Jessica insisted it was an isolated incident, something we could overcome, but I soon discovered text messages that proved a prolonged infidelity throughout almost our entire relationship, making it clear that the deception had been systematic. The divorce process was especially bitter. Jessica tried to take everything, even the car I had bought before we met. Her lawyer, a shark-eyed guy, made me feel worthless, while mine seemed more interested in his lunch break than in defending my rights. As if the pain they inflicted was not enough, the betrayal extended to another member of my family, my sister, Amber, 29. I always thought we were very close. After all, I had supported her countless times, helping her financially, buying school supplies for her children, fixing her car, and even paying her rent in difficult times. However, instead of supporting me in my misfortune, she sided with Jessica. The reason? Jessica gave her gifts, new clothes, outings to fancy restaurants, and even offered to babysit her kids so she could go out on her dates. The last straw was when Jessica promised to introduce her to a supposed wealthy friend of the man she was cheating on me with. The disappointment was complete. I clearly remember the phone call in which Amber, with a haughty tone, justified her stance, stating that men do not understand what women need. It was at that moment that I realized I was completely alone. After hanging up and blocking her number, I made the determination to rebuild my life, knowing the road would be arduous. I collected what little Jessica through her lawyer allowed me to keep and moved into what I can only describe as a tiny apartment. It was a minuscule place, comparable to a shoebox, with an attached bathroom, a space to cook, watch TV, and occasionally even sleep, on a mattress that left much to be desired. That first night, sitting on that uncomfortable mattress, I wondered how my life had sunk so low in so little time. 6 months earlier, I enjoyed stability, a life I considered solid, and now I found myself in a miserable environment, with a cheating ex-wife roaming the neighborhood and a sister who had allied with her. The situation worsened when I saw the Instagram posts, Jessica and Amber appearing together, happy, in restaurants, enjoying a life of luxury I could not even afford. I even remembered a weekend at the beach, a trip we had dreamed of but could never afford. Evidently, once I was out of the picture, money and opportunities came their way. My parents did not offer much comfort either. They insisted that I should make concessions because, according to them, marriage involved compromises, without considering that my reality was being repeatedly cheated on. The insistence that I was exaggerating my feelings hurt me deeply. The breaking point came at the supermarket, about a month after I moved. While buying ramen and cheap coffee, my staple diet at the time, my sister appeared out of nowhere, with a forced smile and feigned concern. She commented, "God, you look terrible. Are you eating enough?" And without giving me a chance to reply, she launched into telling me how Jessica and her new boyfriend, yes, the same neighbor, had enjoyed an exquisite dinner at an upscale restaurant. Condescendingly, she made it clear that, according to her, I should have been attentive to my wife's needs to avoid this fate, and even hinted that I perhaps deserved to be cheated on. That conversation was the final straw. I left my groceries in the aisle and walked out without looking back. That same night, I made an irrevocable decision. I would no longer allow Jessica and Amber to make me feel guilty. I decided, no matter the cost, to rebuild my life from scratch, determined to achieve so much success that at some point they would be forced to acknowledge my accomplishments. From then on, my routine changed radically. I would get up at 5 a.m., work out in the building's small gym, a simple treadmill and some weights in a closet, and then arrive at the garage by 6:30 a.m. I worked tirelessly, sometimes until late at night, on emergency repairs. Then I would grab something cheap to eat and study until my eyes could no longer take it. Weekends were no different. I took extra jobs, repairing cars for cash, doing oil changes, replacing brake pads, and even alternators. Although the activities sometimes bordered on illegal, I needed every dollar to get by. At the garage, the manager, whom I will call Rick, began to entrust me with more and more responsibilities. First, he assigned me tasks like ordering parts and attending to customers. Then he let me manage schedules and even participate in hiring. In just 6 months, I found myself practically in charge of the place, while Rick just supervised from his office, playing cards. I remember one time, while we were closing up the garage, he said to me, "I have had this place for almost 30 years, and I have never seen anyone work as hard as you. What motivates you, kid?" I told him, "I am trying to buy a house." He nodded, with the certainty of someone who understands that this is a big goal. Having your own space, with no landlord to answer to, without the fear of rent increases. That validation, although simple, meant a lot to me, more than he probably imagined. In a world where many blamed me for feeling bad about the betrayal, having someone say, "well done," was truly huge. The funny thing is that, despite working nonstop, I started to feel better. The constant activity kept me from wallowing, and seeing my bank account grow month after month gave me something to focus on, putting aside how miserable my life seemed. Do not get me wrong. There were still difficult days, times when, seeing a post from Jessica or Amber, rage would consume me, and I would be tempted to throw my phone against the wall, or when a customer reminded me of Jessica, and the memories of her infidelity would come flooding back. Still, those episodes became less frequent over time. Online classes became a real challenge. Having been a mediocre student in high school, trying to learn accounting principles after a 12-hour shift repairing cars was almost brutal. I failed the first practice exam so badly that my online tutor even called me to make sure I was okay. Even so, I persevered. I studied during lunch, watched tutorial videos while waiting for parts, and reviewed flashcards before bed. Little by little, almost by force of effort and sacrifice, I began to grasp the concepts. And the more I understood, the more I saw how Rick's business could be improved. He was still operating the old-fashioned way. Paper invoices, no real inventory system, and prices calculated based on hunches rather than concrete costs. One night, after closing the garage, I showed him a spreadsheet I had put together. In it, I analyzed the last 6 months of work, breaking down which services were the most profitable, which customers were regulars, and which suppliers offered us the best terms. It was something basic I had learned in my classes, but Rick's reaction was one of astonishment. "Where did you learn to do all this?" he asked, while reviewing my analysis. I replied, pointing to my online studies, "I take them at night." After a long silence, he uttered a sentence that completely changed my perspective. "I have been thinking about selling this place when I retire. I always imagined closing the business, but would you be interested in buying the company from me someday?" I could not believe what I was hearing. Would it be possible to become the owner of the garage? I replied with some disbelief. "I do not have that kind of money." With a casual gesture, he assured me, "We could work out a payment plan where you gradually take over while I retire. I would rather sell to someone who really cares, and not to a corporation that would fire everyone and raise prices." For the first time in a long time, I felt that things could move towards something more than just survival. The possibility of building something of my own, a future where I was in control, was in motion. That same night, I got home and added a new goal to my list. Not just buying a house, but also acquiring the garage. I knew it would involve more time and work, but the idea of having my own business, being completely independent, was too attractive to pass up. A year after that constant struggle, the garage was thriving. Rick had practically made me manager, and since I started running operations, business had increased by 30%. I saved every penny that was not going towards rent or food. My social life practically disappeared, but I did not care because I had a plan. Meanwhile, rumors began circulating about Jessica and Amber's situation. It was said that the man Jessica cheated with had moved in with another woman just 2 months after our divorce, as he apparently was not looking for anything serious. Also, the supposed sugar daddy Jessica had promised to introduce Amber to turned out to be a broke guy, faking wealth to sneak into clubs. When Amber finally met him, he tried to get her to pay the bill at dinner. The outings, the shopping sprees, and the luxurious vacations stopped. Jessica had squandered much of her divorce money trying to impress a new boyfriend who eventually abandoned her, and Amber, who had quit her job at the insurance company hoping to find a wealthy man, was struggling to find work again. I learned all of this through Mike, a friend of Jessica's cousin. Although I did not gloat, it was comforting to see that karma seemed to be taking its toll. Noticing my dedication, Rick made me an unexpected offer to start the process of me buying the business from him. "You are already running it. Why not make it yours?" he said. So we devised a long-term payment plan that, combined with my savings, finally allowed me to put together enough for a down payment on a modest house in a decent neighborhood. Nothing fancy, but it would be mine. As soon as I signed the deed, I received a message from an unknown number. It was Amber, who, having bought a new phone, wanted to get back in touch, saying that she missed her brother and that family should stick together. I decided not to respond, too absorbed in planning my move. One Saturday, while I was at the garage late, finishing a complicated engine rebuild, Rick showed up, unusually, as he did not normally work weekends. "Do not you take a day off?" he asked. I explained that I had nowhere else to be. He sat on the stool next to my workbench and, in a serious tone, said, "I wanted to tell you something. My wife and I are considering moving to Arizona. Her arthritis is getting worse, and the cold winters here are not helping. The doctor says a warmer climate would be good for her." I felt a knot in my stomach, thinking that after all my effort, I might be about to lose the garage. "What will happen to the business?" I inquired in a controlled voice. With a look of impatience, he said, "That is exactly what I want to talk about. I am ready to accelerate the sale plan. Instead of the 5-year agreement, we will do it in 2. You will take ownership at the end of the year. We will adjust the payment plan to your possibilities, and I will move west in search of sunshine." Still incredulous, I admitted, "I am not sure I have enough for that down payment, as I invested almost everything in the house." Rick, without pausing, replied, "We will figure it out. You have increased business by 30%, and the value of the place is going up with you in charge. Maybe we adjust the percentages. You will get a larger share of the profits, which will go towards your stake." We spent the next hour fine-tuning every detail, and when he left, we already had the outline of an agreement that would make me the owner of Rick's Auto Repair. By Christmas, although the plan was not perfect and would require me to stretch my resources for a couple of years, the possibility of owning my own business before turning 35 was completely worth the risk. Closing up the garage that night, my phone vibrated with another message from Amber, this time with a less friendly tone. "Are you seriously going to ignore me after everything I have done for you? Very mature, brother." I could not help but laugh internally. Everything she had done, from criticizing me to my ex-wife to mocking my pain in my lowest moments, now seemed part of a past that, although complicated, propelled me forward. I had barely finished drafting several angry replies, all deleted, when I finally settled on a simple, "Busy, talk later." That intentionally ambiguous response prevented her from accusing me of ignoring her, but left the door open for "talk later" to mean, in practice, never. The truth is, I no longer had any interest in letting Amber back into my life, especially since her meal ticket was gone. As soon as I arrived at my meager apartment that night, I looked around, stacked boxes, cheap furniture, and a drab atmosphere. But for the first time in a long time, I felt a renewed sense of pride. In just a few days, I would be moving into my own house, and in a few months, I would own my own business. All of this, the result of my individual effort, a triumph over those who had always bet on my failure. However, perfection is unattainable. The next morning, I received a call from the real estate agent. The news was unexpected. The seller was trying to back out, claiming to have received a better offer. My stomach sank, but the agent assured me that the contract was ironclad and that the closing would only be delayed a couple of weeks while his lawyer clarified the situation. Annoyed, but not letting this setback stop me, I pressed on. 3 days before the move, There was an unexpected knock on my apartment door. I was not expecting visitors, and my few friends already knew I was busy packing. When I opened the door, I found Amber. She was no longer the confident woman who had mocked me in the garage a year ago. Her hair was disheveled, her clothes wrinkled, and her face wore that look of desperation she usually had right before asking me for money. "Hi, can I come in?" she greeted, trying to sound casual. I stayed in the doorway without stepping aside and asked dryly, "What do you want, Amber?" With a forced laugh, she tried to smooth things over. "Can't a sister just visit her brother? It has been a long time since we have seen each other." "Almost a year," I reminded her, crossing my arms. "Since you went to the store, showing off Jessica's diamond bracelet." Her fake smile faltered a bit. In an almost repentant tone, she said, "I made mistakes. I was foolish. Jessica told me so many lies about you, and I believed her." "And where is Jessica now?" I asked incredulously. "We do not hang out as much anymore. She is going through her own problems," she replied, looking down. I sighed and insisted again, "What do you want, Amber?" At that moment, her eyes landed on the stacked boxes behind me. "Are you moving?" she asked with a glimmer of astonishment. "Yes," I replied. "I bought a house. The closing was last week." Her eyes lit up as if I had offered her a winning lottery ticket. Quickly, she said, "That is amazing. How many bedrooms does it have?" I knew perfectly well where the conversation was heading. In a measured tone, I replied, "3. "Perfect," she exclaimed with an almost overflowing energy. "You see, I am in a complicated situation. My landlord is selling the building at the end of the month. We will have to move out, the kids and I. We have been looking for a place, but you know how exorbitant rent is these days." I remained silent, waiting for her to get to the point. Finally, she continued, "Maybe we could help each other. The kids and I could move in with you. We would not be a problem, and I would contribute to the bills once I get a new job. Besides, the kids would love to have their uncle around." The audacity stunned me. After everything that happened, the betrayal, the mockery, the utter disdain for my pain, how dare she think she could get a home without paying any price? Firmly, I said, "No, just that." Her response changed immediately. Her eyes filled with tears as she insisted, "What do you mean, no? But the kids, they have nowhere else to go. We could end up in a shelter. Is that what you want? To see your own nephews and nieces homeless because of your selfishness?" That is when I laughed. I did not yell or slam the door, just a bitter laugh at the obvious manipulation. In a broken voice, I shot back, "Where were you when Jessica was cheating on me behind my back? Where were you when I slept on Mike's couch? When I lost my house, my savings, my marriage? Oh, right, you were out shopping with the woman who destroyed my life, laughing at me like I was a loser." Her face turned pale. In a hesitant tone, she tried to justify herself. "That is not what I meant," as I tried to close the door. Amber stuck her foot in the way to stop it. "Please," she pleaded with genuine desperation. "I have nowhere to go now. Mom and Dad will not help me. Jessica ignores me, and not even my friends will talk to me." I could not help but return the irony. "That sounds like your problem." I finally moved her foot and closed the door. For 5 long minutes, I heard her knocking and calling my name, but I continued packing as if she was not there. After a while, she gave up and left. I thought that episode had ended the confrontation, but the next day, my phone was flooded with messages and calls. They did not just come from Amber. My parents had also heard the story she had told them, a pity-filled version about how I was refusing to help her and the children in their time of need. My mother's voicemail was the epitome of classic family guilt. "I raised you better than this. Family helps family. I cannot believe you are letting your sister and those poor children suffer when you have a whole house to yourself. Do you not remember that during your divorce we barely supported you, or that we even suggested you reconcile with Jessica, despite what she did, and we never did anything to help you in your crisis?" My father's message was even more forceful. "Son, I am disappointed. A man takes care of his family. Your sister needs help, and you are in a position to give it. That is your responsibility as a brother." I had not heard from my father in months, and now he was accusing me of not being man enough for refusing to let my treacherous sister move into the house I had worked so hard for. I did not respond to any of them. I focused on finishing packing and coordinating with the moving company, having taken the day off from the garage just to prepare for my move, not wanting to waste it on family drama. Shortly after, a message arrived from Jessica, my ex-wife, the woman who cheated on me for most of our marriage. who thought she had the right to an opinion. I know we are not on the best of terms, but I am worried about Amber and the kids. They say you bought a spacious house, but you will not help. That does not sound like the man I married. Please reconsider. The hypocrisy was so astonishing that I had to read the message twice before replying with a single line. The man you married no longer exists. You killed him. Do not contact me again. That night, I blocked her number. The family messages became threatening. My mother claimed she would be forced to intervene if I did not act right, and my father hinted that he would come to talk to me and straighten things out. Meanwhile, Amber suddenly went from pleading to making angry accusations, insisting that I had always been the selfish one. I do not care anymore, I told myself. Let them come, let them threaten. I will no longer be the doormat the family walks all over. The next morning, I woke up to a voicemail from an unknown number. It turned out to be Jessica's mother, my former mother-in-law, who reproached me. I am very disappointed in how you are treating Amber. That is when I realized they were using everyone they thought had influence over me. The situation was pathetic, desperate, and frankly, quite chilling in how far they were willing to go. I decided to take action. I called the real estate agent to request an earlier closing date, explaining that I had family problems and needed to move as soon as possible. Although he said he would try, he could not promise anything. Then I contacted Rick, who was surprisingly understanding and even offered to let me stay at his house if the situation got complicated. I also talked to Mike, who had been my support during the divorce. He offered to help me finish packing and be there during the move in case my family tried to show up and cause more trouble. His words echoed in my mind. They are only showing up now because you are doing well. Where were they when you were sleeping on my couch? That solidarity, though not from blood, comforted me. That same afternoon, the real estate agent gave me good news. We could close the deal the next day. The seller finally accepted that he could not back out, and all the paperwork was ready, which meant I could move into my new house 48 hours ahead of schedule. I did not even tell my family about my change of plans. I preferred that they arrive at my old apartment and find it empty, while I, by then, would already be in my new house, with a security system installed and without leaving a trace of my current address. Moving day arrived, and I finally said goodbye to that miserable place forever. My new house, in many people's eyes, was not much, but to me, it meant everything. That first night, I sat on the back porch with a cold soda in hand, gazing at the stars, and feeling like I could finally breathe again. I made a possible mistake. I uploaded a couple of pictures of my new home to Facebook. It was nothing ostentatious, just a simple new beginnings, new home post. But I knew Amber would see it, as would my parents, and deep down, I wanted them to. The reactions were immediate. Friends I had not spoken to in ages congratulated me. Several colleagues from the garage liked it, and some former high school classmates commented that I was doing well. Shortly after, the private messages started. My dad telling me how disappointed he was that I was showing off my success while your sister is struggling. My mom accusing me of being needlessly cruel. And then Amber, she went full drama, with a long post about how money changes people, without tagging me, but making it clear she was talking about me. I decided not to engage in that drama. I focused on the garage. We were doing very well, and Rick, my partner, was considering retiring earlier than planned. We were coordinating how everything would work out so I could take over completely in less than a year. It was the first time since I discovered Jessica's infidelity that I felt genuinely happy. I was not just surviving, but thriving, and I had done it all on my own. But of course, my family was not going to leave me alone that easily. 3 days after I moved, I received a call from my mom from a new number I had not yet blocked. I answered without thinking, believing it could be a customer from the garage. "Hello? You finally answer," my mom said with that mix of relief and reproach so typical of her. "We have been looking for you for days." I sighed. "What do you want, Mom?" "What do I want? I want you to act like the son I raised. Your sister and her children are about to be homeless, and you ignore their calls while you live alone in a huge house." I had to laugh. "A huge house, Mom? It is a modest 3-bedroom house in a middle-class neighborhood, and it is not empty. I live there." "You know what I mean," she retorted with annoyance. "You have space. They need space. It is that simple." "Nothing is that simple," I reminded her. "Where were all of you when Jessica cheated on me and left me broke? Who cared about me then?" There was silence on the line. Then, in a softer tone, she said. That was different. And how was that different? I insisted. You are a man, she replied, as if that phrase explained everything. Men can take care of themselves. Amber has children. There it was again, the double standard my family had always used to measure things. I was supposed to take care of everything, be strong, sacrifice myself. But Amber always received endless excuses and support. Mom, I spoke slowly to keep myself calm. I worked 80 hours a week for 2 years to be able to afford this house. I took online courses after 12-hour shifts at the garage. I lived in an apartment where the bathroom ceiling leaked every time the upstairs neighbor showered. I did all of that alone, without anyone's help and certainly not my family's. So no, Amber is not going to live here. She chose to side with Jessica when all this happened, and now she has to face the consequences. It was a mistake, my mom insisted. People make mistakes. Yes, and sometimes those mistakes have consequences that cannot be remedied with a simple "I'm sorry." This is one of those cases. Are you going to punish the children too? They have not done anything wrong. Her resorting to my nephews to manipulate me seemed despicable. I loved those kids, although I had barely seen them since my divorce. But I knew what would happen if Amber moved into my house. She would never leave, and sooner or later, I would end up supporting them. They have grandparents with a 4-bedroom house, I pointed out. Why do not they go live with you? I noticed another uncomfortable silence. Your father and I are too old to deal with kids running around. She excused herself. We need peace and quiet. Right? You expect my house to be your dumping ground for problems so you do not have to deal with them. Well, I need my peace and quiet too, I said. After what I have been through these past 2 years, I think I have earned it. This is not over, she warned me before hanging up. She was right, it was not over. The next day, when I returned from the garage, I found Amber's car in my driveway. She was sitting on my porch with the kids, surrounded by suitcases and garbage bags full of clothes. What is this supposed to be? I asked, getting out of my truck. We were evicted, she announced, raising her voice so the neighbors could hear. We have nowhere to go. The kids looked confused and exhausted, and I felt sorry for them. But what Amber was doing was pure manipulation. My blood boiled. Did you really think you could just show up here with all your stuff without asking? I said firmly. Will you let your own nephews and nieces be homeless? She retorted, using her children as shields. It was a dirty move, typical of her. Get in your car and leave, I ordered. Now, and if not, she challenged. Are you going to call the police on your own sister with the kids here? I took a deep breath before responding. Amber, I am not going to let you manipulate me with this. Take the kids to mom and dad. They have space. They will not take us, she admitted, lowering her voice slightly. They say they are too old. Then call Jessica, I said, without hiding my sarcasm. You two were inseparable, remember? That great friendship you had when you were on her side. Amber's face darkened. I do not talk to Jessica anymore, she confessed bitterly. What a surprise, I muttered. You are a jerk, she spat angrily. You think you are so great just because you have a house now. Let us see how long your luck lasts, loser. No wonder Jessica was not faithful, who would want someone so selfish and cold. Any lingering guilt I had disappeared at that moment. This was the real Amber, the same one who mocked my pain, who chose Jessica over her own brother, and who was now trying to use her children to pressure me. Off my property, I repeated in an icy voice, or I call the police. She must have seen in my eyes that I was not kidding, because she started gathering her bags. Let us go, kids, she said dramatically. Your uncle does not want us. We will figure out how to manage on our own as always. A week after that stunt, I thought everything would finally return to normal. I had my house, my business, and my peace of mind. But people like Amber and Jessica do not go away without one last desperate attempt. I knew that, so I took precautions. The morning after Amber's show, I went straight to the county clerk's office and filed for a restraining order against her. The process was easier than I imagined. I presented evidence that she had arrived with her belongings and children, trying to force her way into my home, and the police assured me that was enough to legally protect me. An officer suggested I install cameras in case Amber tried it again. I did not hesitate. That afternoon, I had security devices covering every corner of my property, with motion alerts sent directly to my phone. Unfortunately, something worse happened a few days later. Close to midnight, returning from the garage, the porch light illuminated the silhouette of someone sitting on my steps. It took me a couple of seconds to recognize her. When she lifted her face, Jessica, she looked very different. Dark circles under her eyes, her hair a mess, and an air of defeat I had never seen in her before. She seemed to have shrunk, as if life had finally crushed her. Matt, she uttered my name weakly. I did not know where else to go. I laughed at the absurdity. That is not my problem, I replied, opening the door. Please, she pleaded, standing up abruptly. Just listen to me. I sighed. What do you want to talk about, Jessica? About all the times you cheated on me. About how you took my money after the divorce. About how you encouraged my sister to turn against me. Or about how that other guy dumped you. I saw her swallow nervously, rubbing her arms as if the cold was seeping into her bones. I have nothing left, she murmured, almost trembling. He left overnight. I have no job, no apartment. I am staying at my mom's, and she is threatening to kick me out. Sounds like karma, I said, about to go inside. She grabbed my arm desperately. I did love you, she blurted out, holding back tears. I know I messed it up, but what we had was real at the time. Do not you miss what we had? I looked at her for a long moment before giving her a cold smile. No, I replied, and closed the door in her face. I heard her crying on the porch for a minute until she finally left. I felt nothing. It was just another person from my past trying to sneak back into my life. But my door was locked, and I would not open it again. Amber must have heard about Jessica's failed attempt because a couple of days later, my parents showed up unannounced. I opened the door, and there they were, my mom, arms crossed, and my dad, with an annoyed expression. We need to talk, she said, walking into the house as if she still had any right to. They soon launched into the same old argument. Your sister is in trouble, my dad began in a harsh tone. She needs a place to stay. A good son would help her. A good son, I repeated, letting out an incredulous laugh. The same son you did not support when he lost everything? Where were you when I was cheated on and left on the street? My mother frowned. That was different. You are a man. Amber has children. And I already told you to take them in, I replied. But I imagine your peace and quiet is more important, right? In the end, you always want me to be the responsible one, but only when it is convenient for you. My father stood up furiously. You have become selfish. Money has changed you. You are not the son I raised. I nodded. You are right. I am not the same son you raised. That guy let himself be walked all over. He would have felt guilty and taken care of a woman who betrayed him. That guy bent over backwards for a family that never did the same for him. I hesitated. I said, as I opened the door for them. You can leave now. They left without another word. I locked the door, took a deep breath, and stood there for a moment, taking it all in. I was no longer their son, and frankly, I did not care. I had my house, my own business, and a future I had built from scratch. Standing there in my home, with no one to put me down or manipulate me, I felt freer than I had ever felt in my entire life.